Hello YouTube. So I'd like to give you 10 Excel tips that will not only make you look like an expert, but will save you a considerable amount of time and make your life much easier if you use Excel on any type of regular basis. So the first one is the CtrlShift function to capture rows, columns, or an entire data set. So this is a small data set here, but imagine if you work with large amounts of data, you can have hundreds of thousands of rows and potentially dozens, if not hundreds, of columns. And let's say you wanted to select a row of just the data set, or a column, or only select the data set. Now, when would you need to do this? Well, perhaps if you wanted to format the data set into a presentable fashion, or if you wanted to copy and paste it to somewhere else. And if it's a large data set, normally you would have to do this number here, scan down, and if it's hundreds of thousands, it's going to take you forever. So what's the easy and quick way to do that? And that's using the CtrlShift function. So, and I've laid out the options here. CtrlShift and the right arrow, you're going to hold these down at the same time, will select a row in a data set. Now you may be asking yourself, well, can't you select a row already by just clicking on the number 2, for example, in this row? Well, yes, and you can also click on the number A, or the letter A, to get the entire column. But the problem is it's capturing everything beyond your data set as well. So it's getting all of this stuff. And if you select a row, you're capturing all of this. And maybe you don't want all of that. Okay? And of course you can select the entire data sheet clicking on the arrow in the left-hand corner. But again, you're getting everything beyond your data set. So if you need to only select items within the data set, this is how you do it. So in this particular example, Control-Shift right arrow for the row, Control-Shift down arrow for the column, and then Control-Shift end, END, which is typically in the upper right-hand corner of your keyboard, for the entire data set. Now, you'll notice that it copied, or it highlighted everything even beyond this table. That's because it's looking for the last cell that has information in it. So it's capturing this table as well, because it's looking for the furthest column that has data, and then the furthest row that has data, and that's how it determines where to stop. So again, that will come in handy, especially if you're trying to copy and paste data sets somewhere else. Another tip that I think will come in handy, especially if you have thousands and perhaps hundreds of thousands of rows of data and you work with formulas. In this instance, I have a formula entered that's capturing the percent of total population versus the total population. And there are two ways that most Excel users would copy this formula down this column. The first is the longest and hardest way, which is copy and paste, right? So I mean, for this data set it would work fine, but if you had thousands of rows, you'd be there all day. The other way that many people are aware of, and this works some of the time at least, is to click on the bottom right hand corner and drag the formula down. And that works well too if you don't have too many rows of data. But if you have thousands of rows of data, you're going to be doing this all day. Okay? So we don't want that. So what's the easiest way to do that? And that's, you click on the cell, and then just like if you were going to drag it down, you're going to hover over this bottom right hand corner, but instead of clicking and dragging, just double click your mouse. And what that will do is transpose that formula all the way down until it sees no more data on either the left or the right side. And so that is a great feature and certainly a time saver if you work with formulas at all. The next is text to columns. Again, this is another feature not many people are aware of, but definitely comes in handy if you work with tables, dashboarding, and large data sets. So let's say in this example we have a column that has the city and the state. but we want, let's say we want the city and the state separated into separate columns. So we want one column with the city and one column with the state. Well, most people might think you have to type it in like this and do that for every one of these. Again, if you have thousands of rows of data, that's not feasible. So this is where text to column comes into play. So first thing you need to do is find the Data tab on your version of Excel. Every version has one. So make sure you're on the Data tab. And then you'll see the Text to Columns option. Again, it may look different, it may be somewhere else, but every version of Excel has text to columns. Highlight the cell, or the row, the column in question you want to separate, and then click on Text to Columns. And there are two options. Delimited is what you're going to use probably 99% of the time. Fixed width only works if there's an equal number of characters within your column. So if every cell said New York, comma, space, NY, then you could use that function to separate. But we don't have a similar number. New York, and Salt Lake City, Utah have a different number of characters, so we can't use that. So we're going to use delimited, which basically is telling Excel where to separate into the columns. So usually it defaults to tab. In this case, tab's not going to work. We don't have a semicolon. You can use space in many applications, but in this case, the cities have spaces too, which is going to end up separating this into 4 columns. That's not going to work. But what do they all have in common? And that's they have a comma, right? New York, comma, New York, Mobile, comma, Alabama. So click on comma. And just so you know, let's say you have some other unique character for all of these. Let's say you have a hyphen. You can select other and you could type in hyphen and it would separate it by a hyphen. Or you could even choose comma here, or you can choose comma up there, it doesn't matter. And so you'll see it separates it by that comma, and it's not going to include that delimiter. So it's going to delete the comma in this particular case. So this looks like what we want, so we're going to click on Next. And now you need to tell it where to put this data. We don't want it to mess with our other data columns here, so let's put it right here for now. And then click on Finish. And so you'll see it's separated the city and the state, and then we can simply copy and paste this data here. And now you have these separated out. So that comes in handy quite a bit. The next function, again, this is one that hardly anyone ever uses, but it can come in handy. When you need it, it will save you a tremendous amount of time and heartache. And let's say, for example, instead of city and state being in a column format, we instead want it to be listed across the one row. So here we want New York, New York, we want Mobile, Alabama, Salt Lake City, Utah, example, so on and so on. So how do you get this to paste as a row? And that's using the paste transpose function. So the first thing you're going to want to do is highlight the data, and then you're going to click on copy. You're going to go, and then the next thing you do is tell it where to put the data. So we're going to tell it to put it here, because we want it to start here. And then click on paste, the drop down for paste. And you'll see somewhere, it depends on your version, you'll see somewhere that says paste special. Now you're presented with a number of options here. The one you want is the transpose option. And so you can see here, it's now pasted all of this information originally in a column in a row format. And you can do the reverse. You can also copy this, click on where you want it to start, paste, special, and transpose, and it puts it back to a column. Alright, so the next feature is, let's say you want to spice up your graphs, make them look a little bit more unique. We all get tired of the same color scheme. In this particular case, we have city and state. So let's say instead of just boring colors, we want to make each one of these pie slices look like the state flag for the particular state. So we want one for New York, one for Utah, one for California. And you can do that using the shape color function. And so let's choose California. So in this case, California is this orange one here. So you have to highlight just that one slice. And when you first click on it, it highlights the entire pie graph. And then click again on just the slice you want. And then towards the top, you'll see it says Chart Tools. Again, it may look a little bit different depending on the version you have. And click on Shape Fill. And you scan down, you'll see there's an option for a picture. Click on Picture and find where your picture is. So I've already downloaded the flag for California. And so now this particular pie slice shows the flag for California. So just makes it look a little bit more unique, spice it up a little bit, and you can do this for all other slices as well. The next one is something that can come in handy if you work with a lot of data and a lot of formulas, and I call it hide in plain sight. So for this particular column, we have formulas that use, it's using numbers in column E, but column E is not really part of our data set. And we don't really want to the end user to see it. So how do we hide this without having to actually just hide the column? Because let's, for example, we might need to change that data on a regular basis, and you don't want to have to keep on hiding that column. So what you can do is something called hide in plain sight. You click on the column, so in this case column E, right click, format cells, and then click on the custom function. Make sure you're on the number tab here. Click on custom, and then where it says general, type in semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. And what that does is it hides it, but if you click on it, you'll see the data is still there. So if you're the one working on the data, you can still go in here and change it without having to unhide anything. And so that's a nice feature. Alright, the next tip or feature that you definitely should know about if you work with any sort of data sets or graphics or especially dashboarding is conditional formatting. We all know how to format. Click on something, you can change the color. That's not a big deal, but let's spice this up a little bit. So we have values here and values here, and people can see, okay, it's 2 million, it's 300,000, it's 800,000. You could sort this from lowest number to highest number or vice versa, but let's add some color to it and make it highlight the high numbers and the low numbers. And you do that using the conditional formatting. So the first thing we're going to do is highlight the data in question. So we're going to highlight the population numbers here. And then you should somewhere have conditional formatting as an option. And now we're going to use the color scales function. And so you can see there are a number of options you can use, but this is nice because it really accentuates the high numbers, the low numbers, and kind of gives you the spread. And there are other options. You can use data bars as well, right? So that's a nice feature, and I would highly recommend you use that if you're presenting data tables to other folks. The next is using drop-downs. So in this case, let's say for location, we have we know it's always going to be a particular set of options. So it's either going to be New York, or it's going to be Mobile or Salt Lake City, but there's going to be more, but New York may be repeated more than once, right? So how do we make it where users can come in here using a drop-down, select the relevant item from a list? And it's actually very easy. Again, we'll go back to the Data tab, the top, and data validation is what we're going to use. The first thing you want to do is highlight the area where you want the drop down to exist, and then click on the data validation drop down, data validation, and then we're going to tell it how or what data can the end user utilize. In this case, we're going to click on this drop down, click on list, and you need to tell it what's the source. And the source is we've created a little list on the right here, and you can create this anywhere on this spreadsheet or even a different tab. It doesn't matter. This has to be somewhere within the workbook. And enter. And so now when they go in here, these are the only options they will be presented with. And so that comes in handy if you have end users entering data into a spreadsheet. It ensures that they're going to be using not only the same, in this case, city and state, but make sure they're using the same spelling. They're using commas in the right spaces. They're not spelling out California. So it helps with formatting considerably. The next feature is relatively new. I think it came out in Excel or Microsoft Office 2010, I think. But you've all probably done screenshots. And let's say you want to insert a screenshot. And so this particular example, this is a web page I have opened up. And this is, we want to capture just this graph here. And we want to paste a picture of that down here for reference. Well, normally you would have to go to this page, click on print screen, come back here, paste it. Okay, but again, we only want, first of all, it's always much larger than you need, and we only want, this graph, so you'd have to come in here and crop it, right? And so you have to get through all these steps just to get this one little graph. Well, there's a much faster way to do that now. So you click on where you want it to go, and then under Insert, up here, you'll see it says, here's the screenshot here. Click on the screenshot drop down, and it's screen clipping. Click on screen clipping. It automatically opens up the last page you had open, and then you simply click and drag where you want it to capture. And so you can see now it only captured that graph. I don't have to do any cropping or resizing. It comes in perfectly. Alright, the last tip, and if you work with formulas, this is an absolute must know. Okay, so here I have a formula I've entered to calculate the percent of total. So the percent that this population is of the overall total, 17.7%. Now, as I showed you before, we can double click on that and it drags down the formula, but what happened? Why is this not working? Well, if you notice here, this divides C2 by C10, right? This cell by this cell, which is fine. When I drag it down, Excel automatically progresses your reference cells down. So in this case, now we're at C3, which is great. That's what we want. But now it's C11. So it's capturing this reference instead of the total, which is what we want. So what we have to do is we have to tell Excel we always want C10 to be the same no matter where I put this formula. And the way to do that is using the $ function. And the hard way to do that is to click on the $ here and add a $ here, and that locks the cell. So anywhere where there's $, you're telling Excel, lock that reference. So now if we drag this down, it's always C10. Now let's say I didn't put a $ in front of 10, but I did for C. What happens there? It doesn't work because you've told it to lock the column, so it's always going to choose from column C, but you did not tell it to lock the row, and so it's going to progress the cell. Okay, so that's how those work. Now there's a much easier way to add those dollar signs, and that's by using F4, so function 4 on your keyboard. What you'll want to do is click on the reference cell in your formula you want to lock, and then click on F4. And it adds the dollar signs automatically. But let's say you don't want to lock the column, you only want to lock the row, which in this case is 10. So you can actually keep clicking on F4, and it places the dollar sign until you have it where you want it, like this. So the dollar sign in formulas is something, if you use formulas at all, you will use all the time, and will save you a considerable amount of heartache. So those are my top 10 tips. They're not the only tips, but these are ones that I use on a regular basis, and they're ones that I don't think are as obvious to a lot of new and even regular users of Excel. So I hope you enjoyed that and take something away from it. And if you liked it, I would appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Thanks.